Enjoy the show.
Beaming at you from the depths of the internet.
This is the Temple of Geek podcast, your one stop for all things geek.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Temple of Geek podcast. This is your first time listening to the Temple of Geek podcast. We have been around since 2012, covering everything from pop culture, news, events, conventions, and cosplays. Today on this episode of Temple of Geek, joining back with us is going to be Sergio, Jay, and Daniel. Welcome back.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
I am Ron. I'll be your host for this Temple of Geek podcast. And today we'll be talking about this third season, episode 9, Vox, entitled Vox for Star Trek Picard. And guys, this is it. Last two episodes, we're probably basically in our movie. Or basically, these last two episodes are going to be the movie that I think the fans deserve. You know, after much debate and feelings about how Nemesis went out, a lot of mixed feelings about that from the audience. Didn't do so well in the box office. You know, much love to. We lost Sergio. We lost Sergio. We lost one. We lost one to the Borg.
Mr. Worf, fire.
We lost one to the Borg.
He'll be back.
He'll find a way. Data will make it right. Yeah. Too soon. All right, guys. So overview. Let's talk about episode 9, Vox. Again, last two episodes. Go ahead, Daniel. I'll let you get the jump on that. Discuss your overall feelings, overall take on the episode.
So, look, for me this week, this was a crazy bit of nostalgia. This was a crazy week in pop culture. We had a pretty good episode of The Mandalorian with some great callbacks coming out this week. We announced
the other Star franchise.
The other Star franchise. We had where I work. We announced our new series, Stars on Mars, which is a reality show where we're sending celebrities to a fake Martian habitat. And it is going to be hosted by the captain himself, William Shatner. So he's William Shatner coming back to space TV this summer. And then what we saw on Star Trek. And I just want to say that. What we saw on Star Trek this week, right? No subtitle, no qualification. Star Trek, the Enterprise, 1701 Bloody D. returned. And I never thought I would see that.
No bloody E or F?
No bloody any other letter. The big D, the big D is back.
The fat one is back.
Big D energy is here on Star Trek.
we you know what?
It was a sexy big D, so it was great. I love that ship.
A lot of people love that D. Loved that D. Oh, we're going to have so much fun talking about that D, but we're going to be talking about so many other things besides that scene. Jay, what is your overall impression of the episode?
This episode, I just watched it again this morning. Well, I woke up this morning about 6:30. Todd Stashwick was doing a live thing, and I watched him just ramble, and he rambled so well and just like send off to his carry. So, yeah. Emotional episode all around. I had to ask you guys to start recording later because I had to go to the restroom and wash my eyes out because of just watching it again and going, yeah, Shaw's gone. And then just like the last third of that episode was a madhouse of emotions, from losing one of my favorite characters with the best arc, arguably the best arc in Trek, to then the big reveal of what the heck was inside of Bay 12 at the Fleet Museum, hearing the voice of the real computer, the real computer, Majel Barrett.
Barrett.
Beautiful. And, we could get into this later, but I was expecting to hear more of her, considering before she passed away, she recorded lots of phonetics. And so I was just to bring her back there. it just exploded, and then we could talk more about that. But overall, I had to wash my eyes out, get the red out, so that I can look good on camera, and then talk about this. So I loved it. I loved it.
You know, when I watch this episode, I literally so I literally have to wake up at like 4:30 in the morning, 4:30 in the morning before I go to work. But I could not hold out not watching this episode, especially since it was crucial since it's the last two episodes. And what I did during that whole entire evening was I literally had to like scream and cry silently, sobbing in my bed, just watching the entire episode unfold from, Deanna really stepping up and finally coming through, besides being, Imzadi with Riker in the previous episode, and then having to see this and the revelation and just, I know I'm going to go into more detail about this probably later, just the whole trauma surrounding Picard. I think this whole entire, in fact, the whole entire season has kind of been about that theme of trauma. At least one of the themes, besides gathering a family and whatnot, and nostalgia. But overall, this episode was just chef's kiss. The whole talk about fan service can just be thrown away, let down the garbage disposal, teleported away, blown up to billions of pieces. Because I think this was more of what I've been saying for a while, is a tribute to the fans and doing Star Trek in a way that, just feels good, feels right. And Jay, you put it in the last time. You said it well the last time. This is what the fans have been wanting to see and feel for a long time. So, yeah. What, Daniel, you were about to say something?
Well, I was going to say this is that pure idea of fan service, which Star Trek has flirted with. It's been around almost 60 years. I think back to Generations, right? And people were hyping, we're going to have Kirk, we're going to have Picard in the same movie. And that was an anticipated event. And I think a lot of people, myself included at the time, felt a little disappointed in how that played out because it didn't live up to the expectations. And from sort of a production marketing standpoint, that's just such a wasted opportunity, right? You're saving that one. You're like, well, we're going to bring Kirk and Picard together at the right time, and then we're going to make a big event out of it. And they tried and it didn't work. And what's crazy about this is it feels like sort of similar to maybe the Avengers or some of these other big pop culture crossover moments that we've seen. Is perfectly executed. It's exactly what you want. It delivers and it doesn't waste the moment, right? Like we're probably not going to get this again. We'll probably never see the Enterprise D, certainly this crew on the ship again. We had no right to see it this time, right? But this time was great and we will always have it. And that's fantastic.
Awesome. Oh, we got Sergio back online.
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear me.
We can hear you. So tell us, how difficult was it to free yourself from the Borg? Did you have to rip out their genetic manipulations?
Yes, I fear for myself, but then I remember I'm almost 44, so I was in a safe place. But my computer was assimilated, and I had to run for a backup.
It's all green. Is it what you're saying? It's all green.
All green. It's all green.
I'm
not
thinking
in a Fifth Element way. It's in a Borg way, green.
In a Borg way.
I assume that you're okay because Worf came in at the very last moment and at the opportune moment to save you.
Oh yes.
Which involved decapitations, even though it's not Wednesday.
Yes. And not in a pacific manner.
When he's done, he's going to be enjoying his chamomile tea. Before we go anything, I just wanted Daniel to finish his thought before, Sergio, we go into your take,
sure.
On the episode. So Daniel, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's not something we ever had any right to expect. It's not something I would have expected. I don't even know that I would have thought it was a good idea if someone had told it to me. But they put so much work, even earlier in the season, I remember thinking, they going to go to the Enterprise? Like, it feels like they should, but how do you do that? You know, how do you go to the Enterprise? And I don't know what's going to happen next week. I don't know if the ship's going to be destroyed. You know, I have to wonder. You know, Brannon Braga said so many times he wished he'd killed Kirk on the bridge of his ship instead of, you know, in the desert. Are they going to give that to Picard? Are they going to let him go out on the bridge of the Enterprise, you know, saving the day next week, saving the crew? I mean, I will bawl my eyes out if they do, but I don't know that I can think of a better ending. I don't know that I want. We've already seen him retire to the Vineyard. I don't want to see him retire to the Vineyard again. I don't need to see that. You know, maybe this is it. One last ride.
You almost sounded like you were getting emotional there thinking about it. It's like, it's so hard of a thought to take in because, you know, that idea, even in the military, you know, the captain goes down with a ship. And
they went out of their way with that great computer voice that to make it clear, you know, he is the captain of this ship. Right? There's no like, well, I'm the admiral visiting and you're the captain. No. Under the command of Captain Jean-Luc Picard.
Yeah, he accepted that field demotion right there on the spot. So, you know, I'm getting almost teary-eyed just thinking about how this is going to go out and just can only fathom. Obviously, it's going to hurt and break a lot of fans. I just hope that there's nobody will be writing any death threats to the writers if that happens. Because with hardcore fans, that's almost bound to happen in fandom.
No, they're doing it right. They're doing it right. And look, they've set up so many great pieces in this episode. It could go a number of ways. But, you know, we know that Picard would die for his crew. I think he would die for his son. I think he would want the next generation to continue, and he would acknowledge that he's had his time, and he has regrets about some of those, you know, some of the wasted time, right? So I think if we see him embrace a purpose and a proactive role, which we already see him in, it's one of the great things about this series is they don't relegate Picard to a side role or background role. You know, they put him in the title. And they give him his agency and they let him drive the plot. And I'm so excited to see where it ends.
Yeah, we're all anticipating that. All right, Sergio, go ahead. What's your overall take on the episode so far?
To say that I loved it, it's like, I understand it. It's like a dream come true. The whole pacing of the episode is really, really good. I mean, it's go from a really dark moment between Marina and Jack, and then it ended up with a really hopeful prospect. You know, that is okay. This is gonna be fine. We are gonna save the day. But all in all, it was an amazing episode. I mean, this whole season keep getting better and better after. The previous episode was amazing. It was great. It was top notch. But this one is even better. And I cannot wait to see the end because I know it's going to be the biggest event in Trek history. I mean, in the late Trek history.
I agree. Yeah.
I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I mean, after reading all that Terry Matala was posting on Twitter and on any other social media, and the love that the whole cast and crew pour into this season, I don't think they're gonna kill them. I think this is the undiscovered country. I think that we are gonna see the Enterprise going into a new adventure, something like that. But I'm not seeing a gloomy end. But that's my opinion.
Come on, Paramount, Star Trek Legacy.
Well,
Where is it?
I think they're definitely, because I've been thinking a lot about this.
Legacy.
they're not going to want to tie up all the characters, right? Because they could do another show. They want to make sure they can bring in a Riker or a Worf or any of these characters if they need to, if they want to, right? So it definitely, they're not going to send the whole Enterprise and lose it in the Delta Quadrant, or anything like that.
That won't make sense at all. Yeah.
But I guess I just think that if Picard gives his life, I just watched Nemesis last night, and that is such a downer movie.
Yes.
And that ending is so depressing. And I watched all 4 movies like we talked last week. I enjoyed the first 3 very much. I actually Insurrection to me gets better every time I watch it.
Yeah.
But that fourth one, and the beginning is good. The wedding is great. Like that first act is fun and you get that everybody's back together and all that. But that ending is so dour. And watching it, yes, and I was so happy. I'm like, I'm so happy this isn't the end. I'm so happy I'm watching this, and I'm like, it's a weird middle one. We're gonna keep going, and we're gonna have the better stuff.
Yeah, that movie had so much problems. I mean, in terms of production, and the director who didn't know anything about Trek, and you can tell. So I'm glad that we have this season of Picard to end this story, because I agree 100% with you, Daniel. Nemesis is like a bad end for.
I remember watching that and then thinking, okay, there's going to be the next Star Trek is going to be our Star Trek 3, where we're going to resurrect Data. We're going to have another, and it never happened.
So it's been 20 years since we've seen that movie. Yeah, I think that was 20 something years.
Yeah. Just barely 21? Over. It came out in December, so a few months. Yeah, we're 20 years almost exactly.
20 years. Okay, so we can say 20. But going back to the discussion of Picard, let's talk about the one big. We've got a lot of elephants in the room to talk about, but let's talk about one of the biggest one. Yes, Captain Liam.
Oh.
Stop this. I gotta get some tissues.
I mean, we need to pour one out. Pour one out for the captain.
Not
Todd Stash's art. Let me start this discussion. He was already a character that got the audience's attention from the get-go, because once you have that emotions welded into you about like this captain's an a-hole, like you're such a talking about the D, this guy's another kind of D. You know what I mean? And this guy, the moment that he treats with such snobbery and his nose stuck up in the air, he's a by the book captain that just doesn't flex for anybody else, has no respect for those that came before him, and that was obviously explained later about why he had such animosity towards Picard, and even a little tension with Seven, Annika Hansen, as he likes to refer her as. However, I'll say this, that even in my feelings about his arc was probably one of the best arcs I've seen in Star Trek, and it was redeeming by his end. The way that he came on, the way that you kind of hoped that he would have a change of light, change of perspective, because remember that episode where he talked to Seven and saying that she would make a great captain one day, and the whole scene, the whole monologue, emotional, deep, dramatic monologue of talking about his experience on Wolf 359, that main battle with the Borg, and Picard being Locutus. That whole tie-in and that whole arc playing into his character just worked so well. And by the way that he went out, this is all spoilers, come on. The way that he went out was very poetic in a way.
Those are his words this morning, Stashik's words this morning.
Yeah, it
said
was.
that.
It was. I still have to watch that. I know he posted it, so I still have to watch his post about that. So it was that thing where he's just despised he escaped the Borg at Wolf 9. He had his feelings about Seven and Picard about being ex Borg, and he's in a battle with the Borg, and the turnaround where I think it was Terry McAuliffe that addressed this, that or somebody else, that he went full circle, and he was the one, he as captain, not the lieutenant. This time he was the captain, saving basically the rest of the crew to get on board that shuttlecraft. So that was in itself, that whole loop right there is what I love, and that attention to detail in the writing just
It's
really
like the
got
perfect
me.
resolution to his survivor guild. He was able to,
Yeah, he came full circle. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So do you guys have any other things to share about Shaw, or anything about our captain, the other captain we love to hate to love in general?
At the beginning, I was wondering if he was a disciple of Jellicoe.
yeah.
To be honest, because of they both have the same by the book attitude. But then, how the character was developed during these 9 episodes, I love him. I know that it's a captain that I will serve under. It's without any question. And after the speech about Wolf 359 that we talked about this on our last podcast, you understand why he's like that. And now, as Jay was, and you, Ron, were pointing out that he had this unique opportunity to redeem himself. In terms of the survival guild. So I think that his whole history arc was beautiful, very well written, and but I don't know if he's dead. I'm not sure about that. I was thinking about this early this morning. Do you guys remember that episode on Voyager where they use 7 nanoprobes to revive Neelix?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I will leave it there.
That's right. Anything can happen. And that's also what Stashwick said. Anything can happen in sci-fi.
Yeah,
and Star Trek.
he did slightly tease something. He said something about, that we might hear about his character somewhere, some other place. We don't know where.
It's going to be Lower Decks. Let's be honest. He's going to show up in Lower Decks.
I
would love that. It works out.
Terry and King are teaching about how they're going to revive him if the possibility comes. So you never know.
If they're dead in real live action, why not just animate them?
Yeah, and as I was saying, nanoprobes are magic.
Yeah.
Let it be a joke on Lower Decks where he just comes out as a zombie or something.
Well, Lower Decks is set before Picard, so it would be prequel. It would be prequel Shaw. Commander Shaw,
Lieutenant Commander, maybe something
getting
like that.
his Titan, because Titan is still Riker's in Lower Decks. So I don't know. That sounds cool.
I also
like the nanoprobes thing.
Star Trek has a great history of these secondary characters going back to the original series, right? You'd have these guest stars, usually back then, one episode, like Styles and Balance of Terror. These characters that serve the story, they serve the themes of the episode, but they're very distinct. And usually the audience can identify with these characters almost a little more because of whatever that conflict is, right? So in Balance of Terror, Stiles had this prejudice against Romulans, and you could relate to that because you were like, well, I don't trust the Romulans, and this guy's probably right. The Romulans are going to lie and they're treacherous. And Shaw is very much the same way, over 10 episodes, right? Where he doesn't trust, of course, the Borg. He hates the Borg and he resents, Seven of Nine a little bit because she was the Borg. And then when our heroes arrive, he's suspicious of them and skeptical of them. And he's this foil, but never like a joke. Never, he makes jokes, but he's never a joke. He's never silly. He's not a mustachio twirling villain, right? He's a rich character. And by the end, we understand why he both had issues with Seven of Nine's Borg heritage, but also had some sympathy for her. In other words, he was drawn to her history because of his experience, and perhaps in some way wanted to try to reconcile or even save her from what he saw as like her own Borgishness, right? Yeah. And he had to learn to sort of accept how she had integrated herself. I think last week I said that she would have to make a choice and it would involve him, and we haven't seen her make a choice yet, but we have seen him reconcile with her and come to peace with who she is and give her that respect. And I think he's never been more at peace than when he was dying. And it was like, oh, the guilt is over. Yeah. I saved them this time. Yeah. And it's gone. It's like it's like this weight. You can see it. He's dying, but he's never been more light. And that's great acting. It's great writing. And it really sets up, it does something to help Seven, and it gives something to her character that whatever they do with her in the future, whether she, next week or in another show or a movie, it's now a part of her, right? Shaw's sacrifice is now something that she, just like she mentioned Janeway before, and she's mentioned Picard. These are people that have invested in her. Now Shaw is one of those people. And who would have thought at the beginning?
Yeah. Plus, her search for the new family, right? Yeah. What more than the love of a family for someone else to lay down their life for her? And so this has got, to your point, Daniel, this has got to be seared into her heart and her mind, and her journey away from Borgness. I think that's beautiful. There's so much more Seven story to tell.
Yeah, we can almost see where her arc has also truly evolved over so many years. Being on Voyager, then being on that Picard, where in that last at the end of season 2, she sat in the chair of this of the
Stargazer.
Stargazer, right? And then obviously becoming commander on the ship. So that long, huge arc of Jay, as you said, like becoming part of this family, and then having Janeway and Picard and now Shaw vouching for her, and Shaw doing it in such a way that again was just really a testament to her character and how
Shaw, the biggest critic of her.
Yeah, right, exactly. To be in that, I know we kind of drifted from our discussion of Shaw into Seven, just because all those characters
are connected.
That's the thing about this show, is that everything is just we can jump from topic to topic so seamlessly, just because how everything just ties in together so well. You just can't have anybody so exclusive. Everybody's just mutually exclusive in their own sense, but how everybody just develops so well with each other. But now, what did we have anything else to add about Shaw?
No, there's something that I was thinking about this. There is something that I think it was never addressed. How Seven ended up being his number one, taking into account the whole background that he had with the Borgs. The whole story about World 359, the Survivor Guild. How an XB ended up being his number one. I think it was never addressed. But maybe I
touched a little bit about it on in the Ready Room a little bit about his
he did. Yeah,
conjecture
he
of how that
stuff.
happened. But it's not like canon, obviously. He just maybe he chose her because
that's what I mean. I mean, it was never addressed on camera. It was something that they mentioned in Ready Room. Yes.
Yeah, so it was mentioned in the ready room that Todd Stashwick was saying that he would love to have somebody to kind of basically be the yin to his yang or vice versa, and trying to bring balance to him as a captain and making the decisions and bringing another perspective of input to his character.
Yeah.
But moving forward and changing
Actually,
topic.
one thing I wanted to add to that, because I was watching the
ahead.
deleted scenes on Nemesis, and there's that scene when Picard gets his new first officer.
Yes.
And it's sort of set up like obvious, they've never met before. So you get this sense like, well, there's probably like a list of first officer candidates, right? And a captain can sort of pick somebody based on their resume, essentially, right?
Yes.
So you can imagine a couple of things with Seven, but the most likely is that she went through that training program that she did. She was put on that first officer list, and he's like, I don't trust this Borg, so I'm going to put her on my ship where I can watch her. Because you can almost see it that way, and that kind of feeds into his attitude and the way he sort of dead names her and all that. Because you could come from that place of keep your enemies close, type of a thing.
But keep her in.
I would get her under my thumb. Yeah.
Yeah. You could see that with a character like Data. You can almost imagine a captain who didn't trust Data and was like, I'm going to put you on the ship to watch you. It's horrible, and it worked out for them, I think.
Yeah, that to your point, it's like that he feels possibly that if that was the thing, he feels like that is his responsibility. I need to continue to protect the Federation from any Borg infiltration, and if this one's coming on my ship, I can watch her.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, keep a close eye. All right, so the change. Oh, go ahead, Jay.
What was I going to say? Oh, yeah, I was just going to say, so I watched Todd Stashwick's live this morning, and just to what everybody's saying about this character. So, and I know that Sergio started with and me too. When he first got on screen, I thought of Jellicoe. I just thought it may not have been, but they're of the same cloth, or they're of the same mold, kind of thing. But what they did with Shaw's character a whole lot better than Jellicoe is that they really made him three-dimensional and went through, that whole scene in the bar and explaining the big reveal of why he's such an a-hole. Just really started to, make him someone that I know. I get there's people that have hurt me in the past that, at the time, those people are one-dimensional, and I've hated how they reacted to certain things. But then over time, as I get older, I'm in my, almost my mid-40s now, I think about the decisions that people had to make and things that they had to live through. And there's this empathy that grows as you get older. And so seeing that character and seeing him go through his entire arc and provide that poetic ending for him was just something that I think everyone wants in their lives, to see redemption and that kind of thing. And so he talked a little about this morning about that, and about his last day of filming and him walking. So he walks onto his bridge, and the entire crew's there, everyone on the bridge of the Titan, and they're giving him a standing ovation. And he says something that is just like, it's once in a lifetime that you're given something. I'm going to mess this up. You got to go watch his posted live, but you're given once in a lifetime a role
proper
like
send off.
Yeah, and he really just thanked the writers for developing this character, and he has no right to have been this character, but he appreciates it broke my heart again, and then I watched the episode again, and then I heard his voice, and then I started crying, and it was awful. But anyway. That's all I'll say about that.
and can we have a round of applause for Todd Stashwick?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Well deserved. However, I just want to note that this is not his first appearance on Star Trek.
No.
This is not his first.
My language, my favorite series. My favorite series.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is not his first appearance. So people can Google that role and look like, wait, Todd Stashwick didn't.
Well, what's great about that, his role on Enterprise, his last scene on Enterprise, was a great tease, and it was like a cliffhanger that was never really picked up on because the show ended up, of course, being canceled. But he uses the line reunification. I mean, I think he kind of talks about this. Like, as a Star Trek fan, he's already done something where he could put it on his wall and be like, I was on Star Trek. I was a Romulan. I said reunification. I'm good. I can be in the museum.
Keywords.
I have a Memory Alpha Wikipedia page, like I'm set. And so then to also be a captain, I mean, if they keep making more Star Trek, he should just do all the aliens. He could be a Klingon next time. Then he could be an Andorian. Like, he's got more roles to play. We could have more Todd Stashwick.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it'll be nice to see him in future roles or other alien beings as well too, because just his role as captain on the Titan has just been so iconic to Star Trek.
Yes.
Just into the franchise in general, and we will definitely miss him.
If you're watching this, Todd, we love you.
Yes.
We'll try to maybe hopefully we can all get together. I know this is just on the side. If he does another book signing, I'm not into the Dungeons and Dragons fan thing, but however, just to go out and see him and show.
I already bought that book.
You did?
I bought his signed copy of the Libation.
Yeah, signed copy. Yes, I'm waiting.
It's in my queue. After this, I'm going to push the purchase button.
Look at that. We're already plugging in his book. We are not being. I want to let the listeners know, or anybody watching this podcast when it comes out, we are not being paid for this. We are not being sponsored at all to put in these plugs, nor endorsing anything of any kind officially. So
this is but a work of love.
This is just a podcast for fans by fans. But anyway, all right. So the Changelings' involvement in this whole season so far has played obviously a huge role into the story, and now we're seeing much more of how they're tied into the Borg. So how do you think that the Changelings have really played out into this season? Like, what do you think about, especially as to how they're getting around from ship to ship, and the whole thing with Beverly finding out how they're being able to duplicate our bodies, and obviously we've seen the incisions that she's made on the fake
Sydney
ensign. The fake
Sydney LaForge.
Ensign Sydney LaForge. I was trying to get her rank right. How do you think that whole storyline played out, and the use of the Changelings?
I have a word for them. Minions.
Let's hear it. What is it?
Minions.
Minions. Yeah? The Changelings, the biggest enemy of the series of Deep Space Nine, became minions for the Borg.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, to be fair, this is just a fraction of the Great Link.
Right. Correct.
And I was watching last night The Changing Face of Evil, which is a great episode of DS9, and they were scary, man. This changing, Vadik was really, really scary from on the very early episodes until episode 8, where we're talking about this. She was like a cartoon character, and but yeah, they ended up being like a mean to an end, and nothing more than that. They had no separate agenda.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing that I really if they develop that, they need more than 10 episodes, and that's impossible with today's television. But yeah, the thing that I would love to see, or I would love to see develop, was that they had like a separate agenda. They were scheming something beyond this revenge of the Borgs.
Well, I think it's from their point of view, right? Even though we all know the Borg Queen is sort of an uber intelligence, but from their point of view, they're using the Borg to get revenge on the Federation.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So like, and then it is a faction. I imagine
role reversal. I see.
Right, and cool. I imagine after the Dominion
turncoat
War,
kind of thing.
Right. Well, after the Dominion War, you'd have to think that the Dominion, right, the stays in the Gamma Quadrant, right?
Yes.
The changelings don't come through, and there's not much changeling presence here in the Federation. But these guys were essentially prisoners of war that were mistreated. Yes. Right. Their existence probably denied. Even when they broke out, maybe a few people at Section 31 even knew that they existed, right? Because you wouldn't want to acknowledge it. So they can't go home because they've been changed. They can't go back to the Great Link, and they're just angry, right? And somehow the Borg learn of them or see them as a means. Maybe they encounter them and try to assimilate them. Maybe they can't be assimilated, right? Who knows? An interesting thing. Yeah. And they're like, well, we're going to use you. But to them, the deal is, we can destroy the Federation. The Borg are our weapon. And the changelings did all the work. They changed the transporters. They infiltrated Starfleet. We don't know how many people. It's not clear how many infiltrators they used. But as we learned in Deep Space Nine, you don't need many. Exactly. Right? They were like, there are only 3 changelings on Earth. Yeah. We shut your whole planet down. It's one of my favorite Deep Space Nine episodes, Paradise Lost. Right? Yes. Because it's no, your fear is your enemy. We're just manipulating you. And that's what the changelings do, right? So you don't need a lot of them. But it's an ingenious plan because, Vadic, of course, was beaten last week, which was bold, and now we see why we don't really need her anymore. But if that hadn't happened, let's say she had delivered Jack and done her part, they could just sit back and watch Federation be destroyed. And
they're just like,
head off into the galaxy.
Popcorn Michael Jackson meme,
Yeah, they almost finished their plan. Like they got it to the very end.
Well, but they were scared by the Borg.
They were scared by the Borg because Vadic would lived under had some type of fear and was a little bit intimidated. And
the Borg can manipulate them on a genetic level, because you remember that when the face thread Vadic, she was like almost losing cohesion, So there was something that really scared the changelings.
He said physiology.
That put me in a position to call them minions, because they were not in control of the situation. The Borg were.
That's true. Mm-hmm. That's true. Yeah. It's not clear whether there was like an agreement or whether they were captured, and is this a form of assimilation, that's been done to them? Is it something different? It's not important, I think, to the story. But you're right. There's clearly a higher. What she says, and I'm going to say she. I'm going to call the floating head face she, because I believe it is the Borg Queen. She says you're expendable. Your whole crew is expendable.
Yes.
Go in there and get Jack, right? Back in episode 4 or whatever it was.
Which is a lovely reversal from how the changelings were treating the other Dominion members, like the Breen, the Kardashians. They were all tools, and now they are the tool. So I love that.
That's another great little poetic element.
Yeah.
So do we think that the face is the Queen? I'm still, because it's coming out in a different voice. I think
Vitalis has said that or implied it in some interviews. He had basically said something like, "You've seen the floating head face. You've only seen the back of the Borg Queen's head.
Right.
Wait till next week, and you will understand." So it could mean a number of different things, but I think we're gonna get an answer. We're gonna get our answer to that question next week.
Yeah, because I don't think we're finished with that.
Assimilated changeling somewhere. Maybe there is an assimilated changeling somewhere, and that's the face.
And the voice of
the
Queen is Alice Krage. So
if they did assimilate the changelings, perhaps the Borg Queen has changeling elements.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
They have added
It's an
their
evolution.
biological distinctiveness to their own.
To their own.
Yeah.
It's, you know,
and included that in their Borg cube. Oh Lord,
it's forced
amazing.
to seek out this would essentially go within the whole Star Trek model, you know, to seek out new life, and that's technically new life. So yeah, but in the bad way, it's like
it's not quite space babies, but it's cool. It's interesting and scary.
It's like I'll seek out new life, but we're not seeking you guys out. Borg and Changeling, nah, we're done with that.
Well, you just, I mean, this is an epiphany. I mean, the motto of Starfleet is to seek new life and new civilizations, and that's the positive way to do it. But the Borg have the negative way, so they are, without doubt, the gene.
They're the antithesis of the Federation.
Yes,
exactly.
I think
it's like the Federation. It's like the Federation. It's like, oh, we got to deal with Borg and Changelings combined as one. Oh hell no.
Well, let's talk about the Borg, and maybe it's on your list.
I want to.
But,
yeah, let's. I mean, let's adjust that other elephant in the room. Opening the door.
I made a list on my phone about the things that we should talk about regarding this episode, and it has three pages. I mean, it's handwritten, but it has 3 pages, so we have a lot to talk about. And the Borg is only the second topic on this list.
You're gonna give us a lot of work to do, Sergio. So we can definitely have
3 times. I mean, I watched it twice. The night that it was premiere, because the first time I was crying like a baby, so I needed to rewatch it. And
we've got content for days.
Yes, and I rewatched it yesterday to prepare for this podcast. So
can I start? I think you guys had seen it before I did, and so I was like live chatting with you as things were happening, and when the door opened for a split second, or maybe longer than a split second, and we found out what it was, I was like, again? I was like, the Borg again? Seriously? And the Borg for 3 seasons somehow. And then, so I was initially just like, really? Again? Seriously?
I wrote, Borgs, 3 seasons? Like, come on.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I'm not blaming this on. I'm not putting this on Michael Chabon and Akiva, but I think that they missed the target on this on the prior 2 seasons regarding the Borg.
Yeah, I was gonna say this time around though, worked 100%. They even got the Borg cube right. You're walking around in there and you're supposed to feel claustrophobic, and like they got the little like laser thingies on the round circle. It's just all there, like what you remember.
Yeah,
you know,
it felt scary to walk around that ship, because I can only imagine the type of fear everybody was feeling in First Contact when the Enterprise E was already starting to get assimilated. In that, so those aspects, and you see crew members being walked around, becoming just on the verge of becoming drones, on the ship. Yeah. But I know you brought up Dana. You brought up the topic of the Borg. So was there anything you wanted to mention or bring up?
I mean, I think the Borg are the best villain that Star Trek ever created.
Yeah,
and it was an accident. You know, it's like Casablanca, right? They're just writing a bunch of movies, and they happen to write Casablanca. You know, the Borg, they're writing episodes in the second season of Next Generation. They're trying to come up with some interesting stuff. They create this episode. It's really good, and it starts this whole chain. And you know, the First Contact it felt like a climax to the Borg story, and you could have never seen the Borg again. You could have said that was it. They killed the Queen. And it's over. Yeah. They made the decision to keep him in Voyager without really explaining it, you know.
Delta Quadrant.
Fly. Oh, well, there's not just one Queen, or you can transfer, you know, of course the collective continues, you know. Yeah. So once you do that, once you establish that, you don't really want to completely get rid of them. And I hope they don't do that here, because I think because you've done it before and it just kind of feels rote, But as a result, they are this ultimate threat. They have this ability to evolve, to grow, to change, right? To get more deadly, to get smarter. And I'm really happy, I think, at the end of the day, that just like with bringing the Enterprise D back, right, exactly the way you want to see it, that they're bringing the Borg back exactly the way you want to see it. There's going to be some final confrontation. I'm very excited to see how it's resolved. But if there was going to be a final battle, in Picard's life, let it be the Borg. And
absolutely,
that's like the Rise of Skywalker moment for Star Trek, but earned, set up, built up to, and even the stuff in the previous seasons, it may not have worked as well. It all at least speaks to the Borg were a threat. They were a big part of our history. There's some sense that they're still around. We don't know. There's a mystery here. We're not sure. And that actually helps this season. A, it doesn't contradict anything we're seeing. And B, because they did that, you expected this less. If there'd been no Borg in season 1 and 2, you'd be like, where are the Borg? When are they? Every week we'd be talking about when are the Borg showing up? When are the Borg showing up? And it's like, because they did that, we're like, no, we're not thinking about the Borg. It's the Borg. It's the prophets. It's this, it's that. We say every other thing, but we would never be like, oh, it's going to be the Borg, because they sort of took the edge off.
Yeah. And in favor of season 2, they did explain well how one queen is replaced by the other. That was really, really, really good. So, but
I love that chamber where the chamber where the Borg queen can escape in season 1.
That's season 1.
That was a cool idea too. Like, it kind of made sense, because why they have all this technology and you would protect the queen. So why not?
I mean, we all have this knowledge about how every state protect their head. So that it's not surprised that the Borg are protecting the queen that way. I mean, with a special chamber to escape, or the way that the queen transferred herself to another drone or another individual to preserve herself. So that was really smart. But yeah, I agree with you. There is almost no surprise with the Borg this season. Like, it's the Borg, yeah. But the twist is really interesting. I mean, that's the key.
And it's great that this whole idea that there was, first off, that the Irumodic syndrome, from all good things, right, 1994, was caused because of the Borg. Brilliant, because again, I think we talked about this last week. It wasn't like he had it during the show. He didn't have it when he was young, right?
Yeah, right.
And to have, I even thought, this is interesting that Jack has it when he's this young, because Picard didn't have it when he was that young, right?
Exactly.
And it's because it's this Borg, technology, bioengineering, whatever, totally makes sense. They probably all have it, right? Seven probably has it too. None of these people had children. And Picard didn't have a child until very late in his life. And how insidious, by the way. And also it maps to real human emotional issues. Like, everybody fears about passing along their negative qualities to their children, or disease.
That's been a theme of this whole season too. Yeah.
And that's why I really felt that line, that one scene, when you're saying, Daniel, when you're saying, passing it off as that one line where Picard and Beverly are together. They're looking outside one of the port windows and on the Titan, and they said, he's the better part of you and the worst of me.
Yeah.
Something to those lines. And that one hit so much because of the duality of Beverly's always good intentions, and then Picard's the bit of Picard's dark side to him, which brings so much meaning to not only both their characters, but also how that affects Jack.
Let me tell you what made me cry. It's a scene right before that. And I watched this after work on Thursday. I went to a Mexican restaurant and I was watching it on my phone. And I'm crying in the restaurant.
Over tacos.
And it's a scene before that. Very early in the episode, Picard, when they find out, Picard goes to Jack's quarters and they're talking. And Picard says, and Jack's like, no, and we'll deal with it. And he's like, no, he goes, you don't understand. Like, they made me nearly kill everyone I knew. There's you don't understand what she can make you do. I love that too, by the way, when he said, but I cried because we talked about this last week in episode 3 or 4. He's like, what's the hardest experience you've ever done? And he brings up this shuttle story.
Yes.
Right. And what he just said, that's the true answer.
That's the real answer.
That's the hardest thing because he was helpless. Like, and again, so real, the parent is only honest with the child in the darkest moment. And even though they were going to die before, this is much worse. This is like, you're going to die. You, my son, are at risk of something so horrible you don't even understand how horrible it is. And I'm going to tell you because I experienced it. And it was so horrible, I kept it from you. It was so horrible, I couldn't tell you about it when you asked me because I didn't want you to have to deal with that. I didn't want you to have to know how horrible the world can be. And that to me is just the essence of a parent-child relationship, right?
Absolutely. He was protecting him. Yeah.
Yeah, I wept. That was what it got me.
And maybe Beverly had, despite how some people feel about her decision in keeping Jack away from her, maybe, we don't know this because she's only picked up on having these nightmares, these dreams, and everything like that. Whether or not that played into something about keeping Jack separate from Jean-Luc. That's probably something we'll never know. But if that plays into a role into that whole family dynamic, and now they're really trying to save him, which in fact was really, I think Gates McFadden has done such a great job in her role this season. I mean, coming off from the top of the premiere episode, and then going to the part where you just, there's moments where in this episode where you just can't talk about so much, but you felt it, like when Jack starts going to the shuttle to commandeer the shuttle and go find that connection wherever that is. You see Beverly basically follow him down one of the corridors until she's stopped, intercepted by the 2 officers that are under the influence of Jack. And she just screams, we can do something about it. There's something we can do. And she's just like, Jack, no. You just hear that echo. I love the sound. I give credit to the sound guys who did well on that, because the way they exaggerated the no on that, you could hear the echo down that corridor to give so much more emphasis on elevating that character element to her, because she's basically essentially losing 2 of her sons. She doesn't know where Will is. He's somewhere in space and time. And so I think that how she played her role in that whole scene and being so smart this season in really exploring the causes of what's undergoing Jack, putting 2 and 2 together with the changelings, and how that plays a role into this entire season, with the Borg finding that out and reporting her findings to Jean-Luc, of course. I think it's just done a great service to her character, and this is what she's been fighting for this whole season. But just going back to tying into Jack, they're just hurtful. For me, it's hard to express into words because I'm not a parent myself. But I don't know. I can't say. I'm getting almost emotional and choked up myself. But if there's anything you guys want to add,
that line she says to Picard while they're looking through those port windows, I lost Wesley to space, and I held Jack so close that I missed the thing, was just this, like, it's almost a little bit of survivor guilt. It's almost a little bit of like, it's how all our moms would feel, right? In a kind of a similar situation.
Well,
That,
it's a thing.
mother part.
It's a thing parents do as well, which is they ignore or they choose not to see some of the troubling things in their children. We've seen that with some, people who have done some horrible things, right, that their parents didn't see. And you want to believe the best. And also, there's this implication that she raised him somewhat in isolation. I mean, he went to schools and stuff, but, and how much does that play into, oh, yeah, he was always different, so I protected him.
It is absolutely the age-old human condition of, generation to generation, where when you have children, you want to instill the best, but at the same time, you don't know where that line is, where you keep them protected, or you don't, or you let them explore the world as you did. And, social media's got this, like, when I was young, but it's a very real fear of how best to raise your children. And I look at my stepson, who's now, he's going to turn 23 here in a month. And he has a heart condition. He's had open heart surgeries since he was born. And just like I look at his mom, my wife, and just empathize. It's taken many, many years for me I can't even stretch the surface of how all of that has experienced her experience in her life, and now the experience of him nearly dying several times has really led to how she raises him and the things that she wants him to be a part of or not be a part of, and how challenging that is. I'll never know what that's like. I can understand. I can see it. I can see Beverly have this conversation with Picard, but that how they wrote her felt very much like the challenge and the difficulty and the human condition that is parenthood, that is motherhood, this is your child. And I've already seen one of my children go. I have no idea where Wesley is, hanging out with Lisa Briones somewhere. But it's beautiful.
Being a father, I mean, there is no biggest fear that to see. I mean, something happening to your kid. I have 2 little boys, and if something happened to them, I will die. So, and when one of your kids has a condition or a threatening, life-threatening disease, you're pretty much powerless. And that's, being a father or a mother and being unable to do something to help your child, that could destroy you on so many levels. So I understand that no. I mean, Beverly screaming that no, because it's her last resort to reach Jack and to try to help him not to do this let's call it sacrifice, because she knows what the Borg are and what they want with him. So she's trying to do the only thing that she's able to do.
Right.
Is just to scream
and to be
try
there.
Try to reach him and try to reason with him in that microsecond. But he's already far gone.
Yeah. It's definitely tough to talk about this topic with having with again me not having children, but knowing that you have just parents that are willing to go risk everything for their own kin, for their child, and you see that with Beverly, and now Picard having his connection with his son, and which was a nice way that was portrayed in the symbolism that we've seen throughout the entire series. With the vines and Deanna Troi finally figuring out the meaning of those vines and seeking connection, and it was connection on two levels. It was that connection with the Borg on from Jack's part, but it was also that connection with the father, and it was just interesting that it was all red. But let's switch. Let's uplift the conversation a little bit more, because I know it went a whole different route. But before this podcast turns into another episode with another podcast with so many topics that Sergio has a CVS list of topics to discuss about. So because there is just so much, and I even wanted to kind of expand on Daniel's discussion and topic about the Borg, but that's another topic for another time. Let's just bring it home. I mean, they have to get off. They're getting off the Titan because they know that it's the crew, our TNG crew, our family that we've grown up watching, are now understand that they have to leave the Titan because it's been compromised by the Borg already.
The Millennial Borg.
The Millennium.
Oh my God, the Millennium Borg.
Not the Millennial Borg, the Gen Z Borg.
Yeah, because they are 25 and younger. Yes.
Yeah.
We can't do that to Mira and the LaForges.
No.
No.
Yeah, but let's talk about that a little bit, because the whole scene and the takeover or the assimilation, that was amazing. That was something else. I mean, because they were not turned into regular drones.
No,
it was just
like the real evolution of the Borg.
Yeah,
they're now purely biological.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Proteins.
They didn't include the synthetic, to quote the Queen.
I'm so scared and worried about how this is going to involve in future Star Trek storylines if they do things from Picard's timeline on. There's Discovery, but nothing ties into Discovery yet. No. So I don't think so. But it's just scary, that thought of how that's going to just play out.
They can fix all the transporters. Like, now that they know, they can replace the DNA back. They can clean the transporters out.
Yeah, I was thinking the same. I mean, it's easier to fix this because they have no nanoprobes, no transceivers, no receivers, no synthetic gadget. So it's just on a genetical level. So
it's a software update, is what you're saying? We could just do a software update to the transporter.
Yeah, something like that. But we were talking about this. I mean, the transporter that they do ex machina of Star Trek, so they can use it to serve whatever purpose they want. So now they are a weapon, but they can be, a solution easily.
Yeah, but I wouldn't be surprised too if the Borg already can even use that technology. But yeah, as you said, Daniel, they can, hopefully Starfleet will find a way to adapt and prevent any of that. Hopefully they put up their own VPN on the transporters, because they can add better buffers, better buffers.
Yeah,
better buffers.
Star Trek has a rich history of introducing, especially in films, bits of technology that we will then pretend didn't happen. And you're probably thinking of the JJ movies, but let's go back to 1991. when they develop a Klingon bird of prey that can fire while cloaked. And for 7 seasons of The Next Generation and 7 seasons of Deep Space Nine, no matter what's going on and how bad the war is going and all that, no one ever uses again a bird of prey that can fire while cloaked. Why? What happened? Did they lose the plans?
Yes.
And no one can figure this out?
It was super secret, and it was the prototype.
Yeah, but it's just like, I get it, because you don't want to destroy your whole world by introducing like technology that breaks your story. But at the same time, we can get past this. It's not.
This is almost a thing where it's like I know Seven fired at the strike. I know that it was a thing to do. I almost kind of wondered if Starfleet would be like, oh, let's gather up some debris and let's learn about that technology.
Yeah.
Like, I would think somewhere along the line, let's use this technology to research about our enemies or learn how and where this technology came from. I would think that.
Well, that's what Daystrom Station is for. I mean, all the stuff you saw in the lockers, right? Mm-hmm. Like the Borg technology and actually, it's funny. Now I would love, maybe they'll talk about this. We know there were little Borg artifacts in Daystrom Station.
Yes.
Right? Did the changelings encounter the Borg on the station?
On the station. That's what I've always wondered about.
Actually do experiments with Borg technology and the changelings. Like, did they introduce them, right? Like, that would be really interesting to know too. Did it actually all happen there?
Yeah.
And with the acquisition of Picard's body was there for a while too. So there was, something that could be researched. If they've held that idea of having aromatic syndrome for so long, is this something else? That was a question brought up by Data. That previous diagnosis of aromatic syndrome is, what did he say? I forgot that.
In question.
In question. But
maybe,
again, let's move.
Yes, Dan.
We're going into theories.
No, but maybe, Dr. Soon discovered that anomaly and on Picard's body, but then the body was moved to Daystrom Station. So maybe they also discovered that, and that's how the changelings learned about it, and that's why they stole the body.
All right, let's go into the money shots. Let's go into the ones that generate the money. Let's go into the ones that fans have been holding and the celebrities have been holding out on.
No. Before that, because there is another ship that we all were waiting for. And the biggest question is, who was in command of that ship?
Oh, I was going to get to that part.
It wasn't his fault.
Oh, no, because Shay was
I was getting into that.
First. Let's talk about this whole fleet formation. Come on, man. You can be that silly? I mean, the whole fleet connected as one.
You're not supposed to do that.
Okay.
One guy needs to infiltrate one ship, and you are done.
Distributed systems. That is like key for IT.
Oh,
they didn't talk to an IT guy from the 21st century, not to network also.
Now, let's be clear. I think when you look at Picard, all 3 seasons, it's clear that the changeling infiltration happened a long time ago.
Yes.
Because we also had, if you recall, there was also a Romulan infiltration in season 1. A lot of infiltrations.
Yes.
And a lot of people in Starfleet that are clearly not
compromised like crazy.
They don't have the best intentions. And little by little, maybe they modify a little science and they publish a little paper and they start to say, this is very safe and this is much safer. But really they're lying. So I think we can assume
they're setting it up.
There's a lot of work went into all of this. It's not just the transportors, right? But it's also this idea of networking.
Bunch of sleeper cells getting activated.
But in terms of a military organization, I mean, try to sell that fleet formation is the ultimate discovery. I mean, the ultimate strategy. Come on, you never did it before. I mean, you are a fleet fleet formation is like the
here's how I'd sell it.
strategy.
Here's how I'd sell it. Since the 2370s, we have seen a notable decline in the quality of our Starfleet crews. Right? I mean, that's why there hasn't been a crew like the Enterprise D or the Deep Space Nine. Like, there's just the quality's down. Yeah. So if we network our ships, we're not relying on individual crews to be outstanding the way we used to do. Yes. And we can just normalize performance across the entire fleet.
Well,
okay.
Hence Picard's phrase. This is the most bold thing to do.
I can't believe someone didn't stand up.
Okay, so this is a reason why. I know I'm leading into a whole different topic here, and I'm trying not to, but it's kind of like you guys are kind of tiptoeing on things on very specific topics that brings to light what I want to talk about. Is I almost saw this coming. I kind of called it because there were certain aspects and themes of this whole entire season that it was just this has got to happen by the end, the whole ship connecting thing, because we saw it in Prodigy and we saw it in Lower Decks, and that whole thing of Red, of being able to control Starfleet ships, and now we see it now on Picard. That's a whole different topic. That's it. That's all.
No, but you're right. You're right. We had on Prodigy, we had the Living Construct, and on Lower Decks, where were the Texan class ships?
Yes. Yeah.
So they and they make a Gruyere cheese out of the space dog.
Shout out to that space dog. Yep.
Yeah. So okay, so going on.
The thing was around. I mean, something controlling this entire fleet. So yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, because all ships. If I forgot what movie it was, but remember, you could enter the way they did it before in order to control another ship, and I think they also did this in the Next Generation. Was they enter in? Captains have their codes.
The Wrath of Khan.
The Reliant.
It's what was
prefix code?
Prefix code. Thank you. Yes, the prefix code.
Have codes to be able to control other ships as well too. So that's obviously another. Again, this is a topic for a whole nother session, Sergio. You can add that to the list. But anyway. Let's talk about the final appearance that we saw in the trailers, that was teased in the trailers, the Enterprise F, and as you brought up, Sergio, Admiral Shelby.
Whoa.
That. All right, let's bring that. I thought it was just. I love that she appeared. Hated the way she went out. I'm sorry. I just hated the way she went out.
I was good with it. I rewatched it just before we started recording.
I couldn't deal with the way they did that. They bring in a character that was there for. I mean, she was there pretty much for both episodes of Best of Both Worlds, right? You know, the people episode
and one episode on Lower Decks.
Oh, that's right. So two of the episodes of that were pinnacle to Next Generation. So what are your thoughts about the Enterprise F appearing and that whole speech? It sounded
first thing, because I think he said in an interview at Talos, they told him he couldn't use Janeway because she's in Prodigy, and
she's in Prodigy.
And I respect that. You certainly don't want to shackle your writers over there. They may have plans, things they want to do. Although they do establish that Janeway is around and an admiral, so I don't know if you can do that. I'm not sure why you can't depict her, but okay. Clearly that speech is written for Janeway. And I think
absolutely, yes.
It would probably mean a lot more coming from her, because it seems like the way they talk about her, she's clearly either in command of Starfleet or very high up in the chain of command. And I'm not sure that Shelby, if she's supposed to be, they don't really say that she is. She doesn't feel to me like, oh yeah, she's in charge. She's high up. She's an admiral, and we know she was supposedly the expert on the Borg, right? So as far as I'm concerned, she let this happen. She got what was coming to her. That's what I have to say. You know, she had a long career, and she clearly did very well. But she let the entire
Daniel, you are saying that she was asking for that?
She was asking for it. I'm saying actions have consequences.
Basically, Riker would agree. Riker would 100% agree with you.
Yes, definitely.
I think Riker was just a little sour that he's only a captain and she's an admiral.
Well, yeah, that was the whole thing. There's some snark and some beef.
Picard.
Well, he waited 5 or 7 extra years to, you know, actually become a captain. She was probably a captain already. So it's kind of Riker's fault for taking so long.
Yeah.
I love the snark and the beef. It was good.
Well, for me, it was a great scene, the whole Frontier Day celebration. I have problems with fireworks in space, but I get it.
Yeah.
It's television.
Yeah. Plasma cannons, and they shouldn't be making the fireworks noises.
I know that somebody from production's gonna explain that. But yeah, I get it. It's a celebration. We have our flagship due to be decommissioned, so it's the last flight. And but it was a dream come true to see that ship being made canon, because we all know her from, at least those who played the game, we know her from Star Trek Online. So we were all demanding to see her as canon, and it's an amazing ship. Pity that we have her for little time, but I understand that they need to develop the rest of the story. But in terms of Admiral Shelby, I felt kind of sad for her, because it was a nice character. I mean, the idea of her character was to replace Riker as number one. Becoming Riker's number one if they go.
If that was the case.
Yeah. The idea was that Picard is no longer around and Riker takes over command of the Enterprise D, and she will be his number one. But yeah, I agree with Daniel about that speech was meant for either Janeway or another bigger character. But the problem is, if the decision to kill her off was already made, I think it was the right decision, because you cannot kill Janeway that way.
Yeah.
Right. No. And I actually think in story, because Picard and Riker, I believe, both mentioned in the first episode, they've been invited to speak. So perhaps the original plan was to have Picard speak from the bridge of the Enterprise F, but because they're fugitives, they're now considered outlaws as far as Starfleet concerned. Like, she could be a last-minute replacement, which is actually kind of even funnier if you think about Shelby as like filling in. She's like
the C team. We can't get this one. I guess we'll bring you.
The C team, that's so sad.
So you're saying that they had a list and they went right up down to the bottom of the list saying, oh, what else do we have? Oh, Shelby, yes.
Picard, Riker, Janeway's on Prodigy.
All right. So now we can talk about the last 15 minutes or so of the episode.
Oh my God.
Okay. I will be back for that. Just give me a second.
Okay, he's out. All right. Well, we can talk about the Enterprise and the return to the Enterprise, very much like Star Trek 4. I mean, the way the scene's shot and they're on the shuttle and they approach and
Very
they see
much.
the Enterprise, you know.
Very
And
much.
Surprise, big surprise, right?
it's been teased, and you kind of knew when Geordi's like, I have an idea, we're going to go back to the museum. You're like, okay, clearly he's got
This gets the D. We're gonna see it. We're gonna see
you're
it.
like, well, what ship
We're
is it
gonna
going to
see
be? And you're like, it's got to be. You're thinking, okay, D E, it's got to be the D, just because, you know. But how? And so I love that how he explains it. I think it totally makes sense. They already set up the fact that they retrieved Kirk's bones, right? So we know they went back there.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to see next week. Is it going to be like? Is it all going to be blown up? Like not like literally, but they be in there and there'll be smoke and panels flying off. And Geordi's like, I spent years restoring this, and now it's just like we're going to totally trash the ship. Yeah,
right. But at least it's going down for. Oh yes, Captain.
Okay.
How do you feel?
I can discuss this.
How do you feel about your bridge, Captain?
I have completely lost control of this podcast.
Oh yeah,
Sergio, I was just saying that I'm expecting next week to see the ship. They're going to battle, and you know they're getting shot at, and things are flying off, and panels are blowing up, and Geordi's just like, I spent 20 years restoring this ship, and now we're just going to shoot it up again. Like we just fixed it. I just fixed it.
Let's keep her in one piece at least for one day.
For anybody who is listening to this podcast and not watching it, Sergio, one of my guests, has just jumped back. He stepped off visually from the podcast, jumped back in, and now he's got on the next generation command uniform of Jean-Luc Picard, Captain Jean-Luc Picard. So he is now in cosplay, and Jay is in cosplay of the science uniform from Star Trek Picard. So yeah.
And I am what I call Star Trek bounding. It's very similar to Disney bounding, where you dress up
I
similar
saw
to a
that.
Disney
I was about to ask
I'm not actually wearing any, but I'm wearing a maroon shirt and this sort of vaguely knitted black top. And I feel like in the future they're always wearing a knitted sweater, coat, a lot of knits. For some reason,
it's almost like you're bounding in First Contact.
Yes,
very much.
They wore that.
The red on shirt. Actually, if I had that vest, I would wear that. That's a cool vest. I love.
I love that vest. Yes,
Computer. 21st century.
Let's say this: they went from the jumpsuit to the leather jackets, and the next step is the knitted.
It will be, well, when Riker and Troy came back in season 1, I'm sure he was wearing a knitted top. Like, there's just, for some reason, people think future casual knitwear. That's
yes.
Yes.
Wait for a second. We need to ask this Sergio the right questions. We don't know if you're a changeling. We don't know if you're a changeling just in that uniform. Yeah, you just got back. How do we know you're Sergio?
I don't think we know Sergio well enough to actually identify.
You do, my friend. You do.
Where did you meet me, Sergio? Where did you meet me for the first time?
Amoeba Music.
Oh.
Kill him now.
He doesn't even remember.
I don't remember. It was at Hollywood Boulevard.
Well done.
We have a Tuvix on board. Anyway.
Oh no! Don't go there.
All right.
Oh my God.
That's
all
for
right.
later.
So on the shuttle. Let's go back on the shuttle. We kind of we're like asking ourselves, it's the D, and so the thing is, they're all looking at Worf about like the E. Like, that was not my fault. So we still don't know. We still don't know. We still don't know what happened with the E on a special.
No, here's the thing about the E. We haven't seen what happened to her on screen, but there is a clue on that. Do you remember those logs that were posted by the official Star Trek account before the premiere of this season.
Yes, that's what I remember. I remember that.
And here we learned
which ones were there?
Her last mission was classified.
Classified, yeah.
Yes.
I tried to look for that log. I couldn't find that log in the Star Trek logs. Did they take it down?
Early this year. I think it was 1 week before the premiere. But then there is a book that is complementary to the first Picard's first season that said that Worf was in command, and I think the Enterprise was almost destroyed on that mission, and that was decommissioned because of that. So I think that somebody will write a book about Worf being in command of the Enterprise E.
Well, the implication has to be that whatever happened, unless it's lost, which it could be, it's in worse shape than the saucer section of the D, which crashed on a freaking planet.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know what he did to it, but it's clearly a mess. It's beyond repair.
Because it was a mess with the scimitar, crashing into the scimitar.
Yeah, and to be honest, if we are bringing back the whole crew of TNG, you need that character that is the Enterprise D.
Oh yeah, it's much more poetic. If it had been the Enterprise E, and I love the Enterprise E.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it's a great.
You wouldn't have.
Worf loves the phasers.
Well,
the phaser race.
Worf did not serve. I mean, I guess he commanded it later.
Yes,
he did not serve on the E with them.
Yeah,
right. No, they don't have the shared history on the E that they have on.
They do on the D.
Mm-hmm. Before together for the movies.
We talk about the details of that scene. There is something that I really would love to see or to hear. That was Picard saying, "Gentlemen, we are home."
Yeah,
that was missed.
Yeah.
I mean, when the doors opened and they were zoomed on Picard, they said, "Okay, here he comes," and there was nothing there. He just said, "Oh, the Enterprise D."
I bet the reason they didn't, because you're right, it's a great callback to what Kirk says in Star Trek 4.
Yeah, in Star Trek 4.
But I bet they didn't because of Star Wars, because everyone thinks of Chewie, we're home. With the money.
Oh, you're right.
And they probably were like, because he said this,
it's diluted now.
Metalis said this. He was asked if he was going to end with them signing, like in Star Trek 6.
Yeah, and he said yes.
No, he said no, but only because Avengers did it.
Yes,
because Avengers did it. I don't want to be seen as copying Avengers. And you could argue the "We're Home" line. It's been so co-opted by Harrison Ford that if you used it, people would just they would immediately think about Star Wars, right?
Yeah,
so that's probably why they made that choice.
Just to that little point, really quick. Sitting in the theater watching Avengers and them sign, I turned to my son and I said, "Star Trek did that first."
Yes. Yeah.
I said the same thing to my friend. Yes.
I saw that. Yes. And just like you guys, I was in our chat prior to this podcast. I'm not going to be surprised if Kevin. I don't know if I should even say it. You know what? I'll refrain from saying it for reasons. This is a Star Trek.
Yeah.
Star Trek discussion. I was about to go there, but you know what? Let that. I just want to say, taking into account all the production, all the details that went into the final scene of them introducing the Enterprise D and having the cast on board was just. How can you not have so many emotions on the emotions of seeing the D? I cried, I bawled during that whole reveal. Even though you had a sense, you knew it was coming, they set that up properly with obviously that first shot that you see was the lights turning on top of the call sign for the Enterprise D, which is so
Whoa.
traditional. Which was so traditional in Star Trek. All those shots were so traditional in Star Trek. They did it with they didn't do it with the Titan, I don't think, because they revealed the hull first, and then
Yes.
they did the lights. So when they showed the lights first, I immediately just started. I can't believe I can't believe they're doing this. I can't believe they're doing this. And then, Geordi goes on to explain where they got the engine and then the cells from, because obviously that would need to be explained. Obviously the bottom part of the Enterprise D was destroyed by the Borg, which was the battle bridge and engineering and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But you had to almost take in a moment and see. It's almost as if the cast. It looked so natural the way it was like almost they were dressed in costume. They were ready for their roles, and it looked like as if they had walked into that set again for the first time, and it almost seemed like nothing was improvised.
Yeah.
Everything was just natural.
It was organic. It was organic. It was natural.
That's the word I'm looking for.
It was organic. I mean, it worked perfectly. But before we said something else, can we have a round of applause for Dave Blass and Liz Klogowski? Because that work was.
And Michael and Denise Kuda, and even I'm sure Doug Drexler had some artwork.
Yes,
contribution.
The whole production crew.
We just got, and you know what that was I gotta give props to the way that was directed, and I'm sorry, I apologize for not mentioning the director's name.
Terry Matalas.
I'm sorry, Terry. That they even focus on that part where Picard is just you see his hand grazing the panels, was just no pun intended, a great touch, because it's you wanted to
it's her.
You wanted to take in the details of that feel of we're back on this bridge, we're back home. Picard goes on to loves the carpet again.
Yeah, and there's beside the carpet joke, there is something that really blew my mind. There is the 2 posthumous cameos.
Yeah.
Because there is not just one, there is 2. When Picard is looking at the dedication plaque, the first name you see under the whole molo of the Enterprise is Admiral Gene Roddenberry.
Yeah, that's right.
I didn't see that. I couldn't see that detail.
So I almost recover from Joe's death, and then when the doors of Hangar 12 opened, I was a mess. But the second I saw that name, I was crying like a baby, because that particular homage to the creator of this marvelous world was so subtle that worked perfectly. And then, hearing again.
Is that the first time we see Gene Roddenberry's name now like part of the canon?
Well, the thing is, what's great. Well, what's great about the Schweiz shot is it is a similar episode in Enterprise when they rebuild the TOS bridge, right? You're using cameras and lenses that are so much sharper and higher resolution than the set's ever been shot with before. So even if you're seeing things that you've seen before, you're seeing detail that you've never seen before. And that's such a cool experience.
Yeah. And I was saying that hearing again Magel's voice.
Magel's voice.
Yeah, she's the voice.
She's the voice. Yes, she's the voice without question. So And I know that it's. I mean, the field emotion was great, but we need to hear her again saying, "USS Enterprise now under the command of Captain Jean-Luc Picard," because that's the right thing.
Yeah. We would love to hear that. It's just the way that they had recorded, as you alluded to and mentioned earlier, Jay. Recorded certain pronunciations that she said, recordings. For her, which also was talked about in one of the Star Trek podcasts that I listened to. That they have recorded
a ton.
Phonetics for the show.
And the last time we really heard her was in 2009 Star Trek, which was wonderful too.
Yes.
So.
Yeah,
but I wonder if this was a full audio that they have on file, because
I'm reading that it came from Chain of Command.
Yes, thank you. I was thinking of yes, I was thinking it's the same quote. It's the same quote when Picard is back. So now,
because when they have the ceremony when he's like, "I relieve you, sir. I stand relieved."
Yes.
So that ties to my theory that Shaw was a disciple of Jellicoe.
These episodes are connected, guys.
Yeah, it's all connected, boy. It's all connected.
Wow.
Whoa.
So Daniel, let's get your reaction from, the final scenes of this episode.
I mean, again, it's like the ending of Star Trek 4. I think that's what it feels like. They do come back to the ship. You get a few minutes. I was in disbelief. I mean, like I said, it made sense for the story, but I didn't think that they would have spent the money to build a whole other set. And they have the Titan Bridge. So and even when they shoot the Shrike, when they shoot the Enterprise F bridge, it's clearly a Titan redress.
It's the Titan redress. Yeah.
So you're really not looking for a new set, but that made it special, I think, because you there's an argument where you're like, well, if we're going to bring it back, let's bring it back for the whole season and let's have the adventure on the Enterprise D. And the way they did it really makes it feel like a special thing, and we're only going to get it for a little while. And everyone's going to be at their post, which if it was a more detailed part of the story, that would never happen. You'd have other crew. There'd be another crew on the ship. And like I said, it's just the perfect conclusion to their story. I'm happy that this story is going to end on the bridge of the Enterprise D.
Yeah, and it's just we're just anticipating how that's going to end and how we're going to see that. Again, I just want to add, going on to what everybody's saying, that every single detail was accounted for in that scene. And I just want to mention how much of that detail was portrayed. You saw it when that angled shot of Data turning around in his seat to face the captain, which was on point accurate. And then obviously one of the things that Picard did was sit in his seat and he had to adjust his uniform.
The Picard maneuver is back.
That little thing right there was, if you catch it, that and you're a fan,
it was,
and I know that I almost overlooked this. Riker was at his chair and he turned his panel. Yeah. And it's those things that you're a fan and deep within the Star Trek fandom, and I just want to acknowledge that to obviously Director Terry Matalas and the crew for picking up those details, and the writers for picking up on those details. And I do want to credit those writers. I probably credit those writers in an article. Sean Freda and I forgot Kylie. I can't pronounce her last name, but Kylie something, who wrote this episode. So huge props to them. Again, huge props for a well-written episode. And before, I want to make sure I wrap this up because there's obviously so much more to talk about on the bridge scene. And so much more side stuff that we could talk about from this episode, but I want to save it for another time and a future recap. And I hope you guys will join me again.
Yes.
And maybe some future guests as well too. And hopefully we can try to get some other people on the show as well to join us.
There's just one thing I wanted to add. Two things actually. First,
7 things.
No, just 2 things.
7 out of 9 things.
One little detail.
7 of 9 things.
No. One little detail when Data approached his post and said, "Hello, chair."
Hello, chair. Yeah.
And then when they are when we saw the Enterprise preparing to warp, the sound effect is the sound effect of TNG.
Of TNG.
That, I mean, was chapeau, because that detail was amazing.
Also
amazing.
The
it was
bridge
perfect. It was the thing we all were waiting for, to hear that humming, and then the engine power up, and
Jordy restored it to before generations.
Yes,
I know.
It was also bright.
I noticed when Jordy said lights and all the systems started coming on.
Yes.
That the sounds had, because we have newer technology.
Yes.
So I noticed that the sounds were probably remastered a bit, or upgraded a bit, to reflect that. But just overall, Daniel had mentioned it, that this is a really great way to add some icing on the cake, to add that special touch to, send this cast off perfectly and have it end with the Enterprise D. I mean, there's no other way that this could go out. And again, this is, for a lot of us, this is the proper ending. I'm just awaiting some other, all stops have been pulled, so I'm just waiting for what other surprise is going to be pulled last in the very last episode, and then for the entire fandom to just start bawling and crying.
And we theorize about episode 10.
I think we got to call this. We're at 1 hour 47 minutes. I don't know.
Yeah, we're at time. So my editor is gonna kill me. So I'm gonna say that on this podcast.
Sorry. So talk about everything was packed into this episode. So much.
This is what you get when you allow 4 guys to geek out.
Yes.
It's just gonna happen. It's gonna bring up so many things. But again, as I mentioned last podcast, there's just so much detail and so much topics to talk about, and that's why we love Star Trek. This is why we do the things that we do. We cosplay, we appear at events, we tweet about it, we share our pictures on social media. It's such that love of this fandom so much. But anything in closing, and we got to make it quick. But anything in closing before we close out this podcast? Let me start with Jay. Anything in closing that you want to mention?
Nothing really. I think everything. I mean, there's more, and I don't want to start a new tangent, but I'm just super excited for how this will all end, because it was there were so many moving pieces, and the way that they wrote this series, it's the love letter that it's season 8, and I'm sure that's what's going to happen next episode, and I'm super excited for it. So I'll leave it at that.
This is our season 8 of TNG, right? Daniel, go ahead.
Well, in closing, I just have one thing to say. Don't miss Stars on Mars on Fox, June 5th. William Shatner.
That sounds fun.
Shameless plug. And Daniel, I want to definitely hit you up after this podcast. Sergio, go ahead. Any last words?
Oh, last words? I'm dying. Okay, yeah. The guys, they're here to take me out.
Steve. CVS receipt.
Yes. No, Yes, I agree with Jay. This is TNG season 8 and the love letter. As I said it on our last podcast, it's the love letter that we are all waiting for to TNG, and I cannot wait to see the end of this. I hope that Jack goes full Trojan horse with the Borgs. And,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm gonna end this saying what I said on Twitter. Thank you, Terry Matalas. Thank you, Dave Blass. Thank you, the whole production crew. Thank you, Patrick Stewart. Thank you, Jonathan Frakes. Thank you, Marina Sirtis. Thank you, Gabe McFadden. Thank you,
Brent Spiner.
Michael Dorn, Brent Spiner. Thank you, because this is what we're asking for. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And Livar, sorry, I left Livar away. Sorry, Livar. Our national treasure. Thank you.
With no intention at all to oversee, to give any oversight to him. But thank you all again for joining me on this podcast. We will be having another podcast next week discussing the finale of this series, and the finale of the season for episode 10, Star Trek Picard. So join us next week. So thank you very much, and everybody listening and watching, live long and prosper. Have a great week, everybody. And enjoy the finale of next week's Star Trek Picard. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Please follow us on Twitter at Temple of Geek. Follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Temple of Geek. And remember to visit templeofgeek.com, your one stop for all things geek.
Goodbye.
This will conclude our transmission.